At Royals Rally on Saturday, there were a few comments that made me think the Royals might not be done. I'll tell you what they were next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. I am Jack Johnson, host of Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcasting network out there. And if you're looking for the best way to follow me, that would be on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That is at JOHNYJ_15. You also can listen to us on wherever you download your podcast. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit that follow button and subscribe. For you first-time listeners wondering what to expect from this channel, we broadcast to you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Now, typically, we like to broadcast during the morning. That might change on Monday, Wednesdays, and maybe Fridays. But for the most part, we expect to have those episodes done before noon. We actually have a couple of interviews lined up, including one for tomorrow. We'll be talking Carter Jensen, a little bit about the Royals minor league system with Down on the Farm. So we're very excited to get that out tomorrow. Around noon is when that will be posting, but you can count on 5 episodes a week each and every day. Before we get started, I want to tell you today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Saturday was Royals Rally, and we like to call it the kickoff of the season, even though spring training kind of is that when pitchers and catchers report. I would say that most front office personnel people and some of the players kind of think that this is us gearing up for baseball action. We're finally talking about it again. You see these players in person for the first time. You get to talk to them about their off-season workouts and what's been going on. So I like to see it as a little bit more of a kickoff than some just little celebration. It certainly got me excited for spring training. We're going to be down there in Surprise in a couple of weeks and bringing you far more content than we did on Saturday, because that was really just Twitter content out there and posting some stuff that I found to be very interesting. And as we teased to open up the show, there were a few comments being made from John Sherman that had the light bulb go off in my head, because John Sherman appears to be a hands-on owner when it comes to making some moves. Now, when I say hands-on, it's not to be derogatory or negative, but they have ongoing conversations, he and J.J. Picollo and the front office. If J.J. Picollo really likes a player and says, we're going to need such and such, John Sherman usually gives him that money. And a story from last year was Carlos Estevez. They had money to spend on getting another bat, and all of those bats went for much more than the Royals anticipated, and they pivoted to get the money for Carlos Estevez, and they got the guy who led the league in saves last year. Still had a massive hole out there in the outfield, and there's many people that listen to this podcast that still believe there is a massive hole in the outfield. And what I would say is we're going to find out really quickly. I mean, we're going to find out if Isaac Collins, the platoon of Kyle Isbell, Lane Thomas, and Jack Caglione are going to be able to cut it. Because last year it was Kyle Isbell, Hunter Renfroe, MJ Melendez. And they were doomed from the start. Both Renfroe and Melendez were unplayable for as long as they were in a Royals uniform in 2025. But Sherman's comments, and I'm not going to say them word for word, I'm more so going to paraphrase, but he had opened up his media session by saying, JJ's had a really good offseason, but there's still work to be done. And after he spoke on the fences moving in and the downtown stadium talks and the broadcasting deal, toward the very end, I asked him to follow up on that for a little bit more clarity of, you said he had a good offseason. Are you guys having ongoing conversations about adding to this roster? What are you still looking for? These bench pieces. And he said, we can't predict whether JJ's done or not, but at the opportunities there, they would still like to add to the roster, and that would be a bat and a bullpen arm. And this pretty much correlates with what's been reported on over the last couple of months. The Royals are looking for an extra bat out there. At this point in time, what I can tell you is it doesn't appear to be a starter. I'd be pretty surprised if they were acquiring a starter. Brendan Donovan was acquired by the Mariners today. Though initially it looked like the Cardinals didn't get a lot. They got multiple picks or comp picks. They had 3 prospects in that 3-team trade. It was pretty steep. It was pretty hefty. And what I would say to everybody out there is the Royals' inability to draft at the very tail end of the Dayton Moore era has put them in this tough spot when it comes to acquiring big league talent to add to your roster. They can trade Noah Cameron. They can trade Chris Bubich, but those guys are also ready to make an impact in 2026. Why the Cardinals did this deal with the Mariners is the Mariners are ready to compete. The Mariners also have a loaded farm system. The Royals, by some rankings, have a bottom 10 farm system, bottom 15. They just aren't seen as that elite farm system like they once were, where you can trade guys from that and you still don't feel that you drained it, basically. You don't feel that you completely tore apart your farm system and what you were trying to build. The Royals are getting there. They're in a better spot since Brian Bridges took over. But in not being able to acquire Brendan Donovan and Jaron Durant, if the Royals had a top 5 farm system, those deals would be a no-brainer. When you have Blake Mitchell and David Shields, though, and Kendry Churio as your favorites, you don't want to trade one of those guys or 2 of those guys for a bat because now you're back to square one. Now you're back to being maybe the worst farm system in baseball. And the Royals still want to continue to build up that system. The Mariners, after last year, they certainly are in a we got to go all in. We got to be a little bit desperate. We got to be aggressive in getting the guys that we want. I would have loved the Royals to get Brendan Donovan. That price was always going to be very steep, even if it was a 3-team trade. So back to these comments from John Sherman. And are they done? Well, the bullpen arm, that is linked to being another left-handed reliever. J.J. Picollo had even said that what Matt Strahm brings in is something the Royals haven't had for a couple of years, which is a lockdown left-handed guy. They had Serpa, they had Daniel Lynch last year, Sam Long. They had their moments. They were never seen as lockdown left-handed relievers. And even after acquiring Matt Strahm, there were the reports that they're still looking to add to the bullpen and adding another left-handed reliever. Daniel Lynch, Bailey Falter right now can compete for a spot in camp, but maybe they do want to upgrade even more so. They want to get somebody that on the surface is a better option than Daniel Lynch and Bailey Falter. As for the bat, I would urge everybody to evaluate the starting 9 right now and what's been said out there. And I don't agree with every move they've made in the offseason and who they're going to be starting on opening day. I've got my criticisms. I've shared them before. When you look at what's available and who would be a starter, who are you bumping out? And does it go against what's been said from the front office in the previous months? They acquired Isaac Collins. When we talked to J.J. Picollo on Saturday, it was this, we view him as our left fielder. We want to look out in left field, as the Brewers did last year, and that's our left fielder. Good defense, switch hitter, can hit anywhere in the lineup. That's a guy who's going to be starting every day. You look to center field. You have Kyle Isbell, you have Lane Thomas, and I've said before on the podcast that it wouldn't make me feel upset if they upgraded in center field. They got an everyday guy. Then you push Kyle Isbell and Lane Thomas to the 5th and 6th outfielder spots or the 4th and 5th outfielder spots. And you get to right field, you have Jack Caglione. And there's been no indication that Jack Caglione's going to be platooning with somebody or not playing every day. So the weakest part of your team, those are the 4 guys you're going to be rolling into the season with. Then on the infield, well, Mikel's not losing any reps to anybody. Bobby's not. Jonathan India is one that at the beginning of the offseason, I would have said, you need to upgrade there. They chose to tender his contract. They have spoken highly about him this offseason and think that he's going to bounce back. Whether that happens or not, as I said earlier on the show, we're going to find out pretty soon. We're going to know pretty quickly if he's able to bounce back. So you're not getting another second baseman because Jonathan India is there making $8.5 to $9 million. Vinny's at first. You have Carter and Salvy as the catcher and the DH, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit more in the second segment. You don't bring in a DH only because that means that either Vinny, Salvy, or Carter's not playing. And we all know about the high hopes for Carter Jensen. The bench, however, and we did an episode on this last week, the bench needs to be rounded out. And seeing Matt Quattro's lineups over the last 3 years, we all know that he loves platoon lineups. He loves to mix and match, play the advantages. You can't do that if you have a couple of guys on the bench that are hitting 170 or 180. That's where I could see them upgrading. That's what I can see them doing in spring training. And those moves don't have to happen before pitchers and catchers report. I mean, Mark Canha was not a good addition by the Royals when it was all said and done. They got Mark Canha a week before the season started. And with those two spots, or I guess three technically, there's two bench spots I could see them filling and one more bullpen spot if they wanted to. They don't have to with the left-handed reliever. If they wanted to, that can be seen throughout spring training. And what I could see too, and maybe it's the most likely scenario, is you see how things are going in spring training. If Daniel Lynch and Bailey Falter are not pitching well, they're competing for a spot. So you have to go off that. You have to go off of their success in spring training, whether those numbers matter or they do not. And if they've got 8+ ERAs in the first week or two, maybe that's when you make the move. You go sign somebody, you pull off a trade. Same goes for guys on the bench like Tyler Tolbert, Dairon Blanco, Nick Lofton. See how they play in the first couple of weeks. And if they're not cracking it, if they're not getting on this roster, then that's when you can upgrade. There's still a lot of guys available in free agency. There will be guys available in trade. Guys are going to get DFA'd. You can make trades happen there. Should be all interesting how it plays out. Those words from John Sherman, though, make me think the roster's not set. Where they can upgrade, I've highlighted those spots. If you've got anybody in mind, let us know in the YouTube comments below. When we come back, I talked to Matt Quatrero about how the Royals may split time between Carter Jensen and Salvador Perez. We'll talk about that next on Locked On Royals. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game that everybody's waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. We are back here on Locked On Royals. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcasting network out there. And a quick reminder that if you want to be more involved than ever here on the Locked On Podcast Network, we've got the Everydayer Club for you. Now, what that entails, we have a Discord channel where you can join. We'll have a giant group message. We'll talk all things Royals. I'll try to be pretty active down in spring training with it. So if that sounds enticing to you, it's not just that either. You can have ad-free Locked On Royals episodes. It's a very simple sign up. You'll just scroll down below on this video or wherever you're listening to your podcast, and you can click on that URL link, and they're going to be able to take you from there. So if you want some of that access, there's tons of stuff that you can have that access to, and it's pretty cheap as well, guys. Locked On is very happy to promote this. If you've been listening to us for a while, you know that we're very proud of it as well, and we can't get enough of it. So if you want to sign up, you want ad-free episodes, you want that Discord channel access, you can scroll down below, click on that URL link, and they're going to be able to take you from there. One of the questions that I had asked to Matt Quatrero on Saturday at Royals Rally involved Carter Jensen and Salvador Perez. And though we have been just gushing over Carter Jensen, and really not just us, a lot of people nationally, when looking at the Royals, have talked about Carter Jensen, him being a dark horse candidate of Rookie of the Year, and how he fits into this lineup. Now, if I was to go back to the end of the season, and I was to tell you what my prediction is for the opening day roster, Carter Jensen would have been on it. I saw him more in a Freddie Fermin role. Or maybe I would say that midway through September before he really took off, I viewed him as that Freddie Fermin type. Now I view him as a surefire starter. I don't see a world in which Carter Jensen is not starting on opening day. And though we are a month or I guess I should probably just say 2 months, even though we just began February, we're 2 months away from opening day when the Royals will be in Atlanta on Friday night, kicking off the 2026 season. It's a long ways before then. And I knew Q was not going to give me the answer I was hoping for, but I thought I might try. And I'd ask, you've got a guy like Carter Jensen who exploded onto the scene in September. Now he's seen as this Rookie of the Year candidate. How do you plan on juggling Salvador Perez, who's 36 years old, and Carter Jensen, who's this young up-and-coming catcher? Right? It almost seems like a no-brainer putting Salvador Perez at DH and Carter Jensen behind the plate, would it not? And Q had said that we're going to catch Carter a lot. They're going to complement each other, but we got a Hall of Famer that's going to get a ton of reps back there. And I knew that was going to get some pushback on Twitter when I reported that, because many people have said, why would they even catch Salvy anymore? The defensive numbers aren't there. He's 36 years old. If you want the offensive numbers to be better, you want them to be improved from a year ago, you might as well take him off his feet. You've got this 22-year-old catcher who could catch all the games if you needed to. He's young, he's spry, his knees are much better than Salvador Perez, and him getting out there every single day allows him to build the relationship with the pitchers that he didn't get to catch until September. But we have to acknowledge some numbers here as well. This blew me away. This was something I did not expect to see. I went back over the last 3 seasons, I want to say it was. I know for a fact 2, but I'm pretty sure I checked the last 3 seasons for Salvador Perez. By far and away, his worst numbers when he was starting in the lineup was when he was DHing. I mean, they were ghastly. They were ghastly last year. They were not great in 2024, and I couldn't really wrap my mind around that. You've got a older, larger catcher, and we have to take that into account because I always think of Joe Mauer. Joe Mauer was, undeniably one of the greatest catchers, if not the greatest catcher in his prime. Could definitely say in the American League. I know toward the very tail end, Buster Posey was great in San Francisco, but Joe Mauer was a big dude. And toward the very end, Joe Mauer was a first baseman. He was a first baseman. He was a DH. He wasn't catching that much anymore. And he was just a large human being. So is Salvador Perez. So when I look at this roster and what they can do, well, Salvador Perez is 36. He's 6'3", 255 pounds. You're playing 162 games a year. And it almost just is the easiest thing in the world to plug him into the DH spot and you go from there. And maybe at some point in the season, that is going to be the case. What I haven't taken into account is that a lot of these pitchers love throwing to Salvador Perez. They can't do that forever. And they need to acknowledge that Carter Jensen has to build that relationship, has to build that chemistry. But to begin the year, I think we're going to see Salvador Perez out there a heck of a lot more than Carter Jensen. And unless they add another bat, which pushes Carter Jensen to the bench, Carter's going to be the DH. How long you want to DH a 22-year-old, that's up to Matt Quatrero. If it were my decision, I don't want Carter Jensen DHing that much. I want him to grow, mature, develop behind the plate. Salvador Perez can be out there twice a week, maybe just once a week once you get into the dog days of summer. But you've got a young phenom catcher that needs to build that relationship, needs to build that chemistry with the starting rotation, get comfortable, call those games, and Salvy can still do that. I'm hoping that in a perfect world, you pick 1 or 2 guys that have tremendous numbers with Salvador Perez. We saw with Freddie Fermin that Freddie would always be catching Noah Cameron, I want to say it was. And Luke Maile had some guy as well that the numbers were just better. John Lester did it for years with the Chicago Cubs and in Boston and then with the Athletics too. And in fact, it was not Derek Norris who was John Lester's catcher. I want to say it was Gregory Soto. That was John Lester's catcher. They just got their guy. They've got their relationship, and maybe leave that to Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha. But Ragans, Bubic, Cameron, Bergert, Kolick, they got to have a relationship with both sides. I'll never fault a veteran for picking one catcher and wanting to stick with him. Michael Wacha said that he signed here because he wanted to throw to Salvador Perez, and he had his good buddy Seth Lugo as well. But moving forward throughout the season, I know I can acknowledge and bring up that the numbers were not great as a DH, and Salvy loves to play every day. In fact, he yelled from the back of the room when I asked this question, well, I like the sound of that, to play every day, to be the catcher every day. He also is a team player, and he knows Carter needs to be out there a lot, and Carter has to be behind the plate, and he has to be starting those games there. And if you want to keep Salvador Perez healthy, the best way to do that is DHing him and every once in a while playing him at first base. That, in my opinion, is what needs to happen. I don't want to get to June and July, even if the Royals have a great record, where every time that lineup is released, Carter Jensen's DHing. You got a 22-year-old kid here that's got all the energy in the world. He's barely had any time at the big league level being a hitter only. And I honestly believe that puts more pressure on Carter to perform offensively. Salvy goes in DHs. We know the power is going to be there. He has been a long-time vet. And if he doesn't hit well, he doesn't hit well. For Carter, maturing and developing, you want to know that he's still got that ability to go out there behind the plate, call a great game, be good defensively, and not just be this guy that has to hit well, has to be a top 5 contributor in this lineup, or he's not going to be valuable to this team. And it's why it's dumb when you go into spring training, and I know this going in, but also it was through great mentoring before I got down to spring training. You don't ask the manager who the opening day lineup is going to consist of, who's the opening day starter on February 15th. And even if it's a easy automatic answer, if I went over to the Tigers camp, which is in Florida, so I couldn't be there to begin with, and I asked AJ Hinch who's the opening day starter, I'm sure he could tell me Tarek Skubal, and maybe he would. Like, you just don't ask that. And I just wanted to see what the pulse would be on Jensen and Salvy. And it didn't surprise me that much that with Salvador Perez in the room, Matt Quatrero talking to reporters, that you're not going to downplay your captain of, oh, he's not going to be the catcher anymore. It's going to be Carter. Carter's also got to earn it in spring training. I would say, though, by June, he needs to be that guy catching 90% of these games. You can give Salvy a game or two in the week. Carter Jensen, though, needs to be this team's everyday catcher once you get the dog days of summer. Do you agree with me? If so, let us know why you do agree with me. Or if you don't agree with me whatsoever and you think Salvy should be the guy moving forward, you can let us know in the YouTube comments below. We'll take our final break of the show. Last thing I want to touch on from Royals Rally was words from JJ Picollo and that Cole Ragans was asked to pitch for the Team USA in the World Baseball Classic. He declined, though. Why did he decline? We'll tell you next on Locked On Royals. Welcome back into Locked On Royals. I'm your host, Jack Johnson. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcasting network out there. This Monday episode is really us recapping all from Royals Rally. And if you were out there, let me know your experience. I know I ran into a couple of people that were very kind in coming up to me. We talked a little bit of Royals. Your kids were out there too. So as long as you guys stayed warm, I'm sure you had a great time getting those autographs, talking to a few of the players. I always love it to get the chance to talk to these guys before spring training. And there was some interesting stuff coming away from that first meeting, if you will, or first meeting of the season with the 2026 club. Going back to when JJ Picollo was in front of the media, one of the things that he had slipped in there from a question that was from Sam McDowell, the KC Star. Does phenomenal work, and it was a great question about Cole Ragans. Do you view him as almost more of an offseason acquisition because he only made 13 starts last year? And he didn't quite say, yes, we view him as an offseason acquisition, but knowing that they're going to need him for the entire year. We saw how good he was in 2024. You only got 13 starts from him, and I would say half of them were Cole Ragans starts. The other half, it was the injured Cole Ragans that we got used to in the middle of that season. But what he had said was he was approached by, I'm assuming, Mark DeRosa. I don't know if Mark DeRosa does 100% of the recruitment, but Mark DeRosa is somebody that if it's not him, he's telling another coach or somebody involved with Team USA to recruit these players. And Ragans was approached, and that has to be a tremendous honor coming off the season that he had. He was great in September, but overall, he wasn't phenomenal numbers-wise. The underlying metrics and the bad luck that he dealt with, that's all acknowledged by a lot of baseball people around there. But they wanted to give him an opportunity to join this bullpen. And that's honestly why it's a no-brainer for him to decline. You got to go back to 2023, the last World Baseball Classic. Brady Singer, who was supposed to be the Royals' #1 starter going into that year, he goes to pitch for Team USA. He's not in the rotation. So he's out of the bullpen. He might pitch in high leverage. He might pitch in low leverage. He had one appearance, and he got bombed by Team Mexico. It was one of the losses that they had on their way to the championship. Never pitched again. And even though it was a great honor, and we talked to Brady actually at the 2024 Royals rally about that, and he said, "Oh, it's not anything that completely threw me off. It was a little bit different, but I would do it again in a heartbeat. I wouldn't decline pitching for Team USA because it was going to mess with my routine." Cole Ragans is a bit different. The Royals were going into 2000 and actually it was 2023 before that year, and Brady Singer wasn't very good. So we talked about it with him in 2024 because then he had a much better season, but wanted to see if any of his poor numbers could be related to that it was a weird spring training. He didn't get built up normally. It's not showing up to camp in mid-February and leaving at the end of March when you've gotten 6 starts under your belt and you've built up and you feel good. World Baseball Classic, it's do or die. It's a tournament. You got pool play, then you got the bracket, and you're going up against the best of the best. It's an honor to be a part of. With Cole Ragans, why he's different. He was hurt last year. Brady Singer was not hurt in 2022, going into 2023. Cole Ragans needs to get built up. He needs to have a normal spring training. And the last thing he needs to do is go out there and join the bullpen for Team USA. And I'm stoked for it. I am so very excited to watch the World Baseball Classic. What I can acknowledge, though, too, is we wouldn't have seen Cole Ragans pitch all that often. I mean, the top 4, and who's going to be starting for Team USA, Tarek Skubal, Paul Skeens, Joe Ryan, and Logan Webb. Though Webb's probably the number 3, and then Joe Ryan's the number 4. How often are you calling upon Cole Ragans? There would be moments. I'm sure he could come in and pitch 1 inning, but Cole Ragans did the mature thing, and J.J. Picollo said as much. It's a great honor. I'm happy that you're inviting me. I want to make sure that I'm built up to make a deep run in the postseason. And that should make every Royals fan feel great about it. Because honestly, as cool as the World Baseball Classic is, Bobby Witt Jr. is going to be starting. He's going to be playing every single game. There's not a huge difference. I even talked to Vinny Pasquantino about how different it is. And he said, it won't be that different for me this year. He said, I was never in camp when I was with Team Italy in the World Baseball Classic. So the last time he was there in 2023, it's like he went straight to the World Baseball Classic instead of going to camp, then showing up to the World Baseball Classic and coming back. He said it won't be as different this year because they're not leaving the country. They're playing in Miami. Team Italy's pool is there, and then they'd be playing in either Houston or Miami the rest of the way. That's assuming they get out of pool play. He said it's going to be different for Seth Lugo. Team Puerto Rico, I think, is playing in the DR in their pool before then maybe coming over to the States to play in the bracket play. That's what screws up a lot of these guys because there's different time zones. There's a lot of travel. It's hard to really get into a routine. But if you start in the U.S. and that's where you're playing, guys that are playing every single day, it's not going to screw with you too much. And for Team USA and for Caglione and Vinny Pasquantino, Team Venezuela, I want to say is also in Miami to begin. I have to go and double check that and look at the pool play and all the bracket stuff. The only guy, though, that might be at risk of not pitching in the States and pool play is Seth Lugo for Team Puerto Rico. Rest of the guys, they should not be thrown off that much. And all of them are position players. Caglione and Vinny Pasquantino are going to be playing every game and starting for Team Italy. Michael Garcia and Salvador Perez will be starting for Team Venezuela. Bobby Witt Jr. is the starting shortstop for Team USA. So Ragans declining this, though I would have loved to see him pitch in a U.S. uniform and get that opportunity. He's focused on staying healthy and being built up throughout spring training and then having enough bullets in the chamber to make a deep run in October. He doesn't want to run out of gas. And some pitchers, they view it that way. It was a big problem for Team USA for a number of World Baseball Classics to get any sort of pitcher. Go back and look at the rotation in 2023. They didn't get any of the heavy hitters. Adam Wainwright was out there. Merrill Kelly, who I love Merrill Kelly a lot. I think that he's a very serviceable number 3 guy. He's not Tarek Skubal or Paul Skeens or Logan Webb or Joe Ryan for that matter. They've always had issues. And in 2017, Marcus Stroman was their number 1, who at the time was Blue Jays number 1, number 2 guy. Other than that, they didn't have a great collection of starters. Danny Duffy was a starter actually for Team USA, and he had pitched somewhat okay, but he'd really only done it once at the big league level really effectively, and that was coming off the 2016 season, and he just gotten his contract. So now they've got 2 Cy Young winners in the rotation. In another year, I'm sure Cole Ragans would accept that invite, but to pitch out of the bullpen and not know when you're throwing, that's likely why he decided to decline and get a normal spring training in 2026. Are you bummed out that we won't see Cole Ragans in the World Baseball Classic, or do you love his decision? Let us know in the YouTube comments below. That's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. Tomorrow, as we said, we'll be doing a very special interview with Down on the Farm, talking all things Royals farm system and a little bit on Carter Jensen. So make sure you subscribe and follow our podcast so you get all the latest episodes. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Royals ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to the URL link below to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen Locked On MLB. Until tomorrow morning, you take it easy, Kansas City.